when one soldier was left behind enemy lines. What happened next defied all odds. It is a scenario every infantryman dreads. The crushing realization that the rumble of friendly engines has faded into the distance, replaced by the alien sounds of an enemy advance. To be cut off, surrounded, and utterly alone. This is not a work of fiction. This is the true story of one man, abandoned by circumstance, in the frozen hell of the Eastern Front in the winter of 1944. A man whose name would become synonymous with sheer, indomitable will. A Red Army soldier, separated from his unit, who did not hide, did not surrender, but instead chose to fight a one-man war. For 3 days, he waged a private battle against an entire German security battalion. What he accomplished in those 72 hours would stretch the boundaries of belief, turning a desperate situation into a legend of survival and defiance. Our story begins in the grim, final months of 1944. The location? The dense, snow-laden forests and swamps near the village of Dukora, east of Minsk, in Soviet Belarus. The colossal Soviet summer offensive, Operation Bagration, had shattered Army Group Center months before. But the war was far from over. In its wake, scattered but still dangerous German rearguard and security units conducted fighting withdrawals, while partisan bands and roaming Red Army detachments clashed with them in a brutal, chaotic hinterland. Into this volatile landscape advanced the 160th Rifle Division of the 70th Army, part of the 1st Belarusian Front. Among its ranks was a 25-year-old senior sergeant in a mortar company, Mikhail Borisovich Ievlev. Not much is known of Ievlev's life before the war, but by January 1945, he was a hardened veteran. He was a Zamkom Vzvod, an assistant platoon commander in the 2nd Battalion's mortar unit. His weapon was not a rifle, but the complex and punishing 82mm Batalyonny Minomyot, the BM-82 mortar, a crew-served weapon requiring a team to operate effectively. On January 14, 1945, Ievlev's battalion was engaged in a fierce action against elements of the German 110th Security Battalion. The fighting was close quarters and confused, a swirling melee in the White Woods. German machine gun nests, well positioned in the dense terrain, were holding up the Soviet advance, inflicting heavy casualties. Ievlev's mortar crew was called forward to provide direct, high-angle fire to smash these strongpoints. They moved up, set their base plate in the deep snow, and began dropping rounds with deadly accuracy. But in the fluidity of the battle, a German counterthrust managed to temporarily split the Soviet forces. Under intense pressure, with orders to pull back and regroup, Ievlev's battalion commander made the agonizing decision to withdraw. The mortar crews packed up their gear and fell back under covering fire. In the noise, the smoke, and the blinding snow, a critical miscommunication occurred. One man was missed. As the sounds of his comrades' fighting withdrawal faded to the east, a sudden, eerie quiet descended upon Mikhail Ievlev's position. The acrid smell of cordite and snow hung in the air. He looked around. He was alone. His mortar, its ammunition expended, was a heavy, useless piece of metal. He was armed only with his standard issue Mosin-Nagant M1891/30 rifle, a single grenade, and his entrenching tool. The temperature was plummeting, well below freezing. The forest, moments ago an arena of violence, now felt like a vast, silent tomb. But it was not empty. Little did Ievlev know that the German unit he had just been shelling, the 3rd Company of the 110th Security Battalion, was now consolidating its position in this very sector. They were not frontline Wehrmacht panzer troops, but they were experienced, garrison soldiers tasked with pacification and rear area security, men hardened by years of anti-partisan warfare. They numbered over 200 strong. Their commander, having repulsed the Soviet attack, now ordered patrols to sweep the woods for stragglers and to secure their perimeter for the night. By 1600 hours, the weak winter light was already failing. Ievlev's first priority was survival. To move towards his own lines in daylight risked running straight into German patrols. His decision was instantaneous and born of instinct. He would not run. He would not try to sneak away. He would stay and he would fight. But how? One man against a battalion? Pause. His first act was one of brilliant improvisation. He found the discarded pack of a fallen comrade. In it was a single precious anti-tank grenade, an RPG-43. A devastating weapon, but useless against infantry in open combat due to its short, dangerous throwing range. Ievlev saw not a grenade, but the heart of a trap. He scouted the immediate area, his eyes missing nothing. He found a shallow German communication trench, abandoned in the earlier fighting. It was not deep, but it was a start. Working with frantic, silent speed, he used his shovel to deepen a section of it, creating a one-man foxhole with a clear field of fire down a narrow forest trail, a natural choke point. He then carefully rigged the RPG-43 as a booby trap, tying it to a tree with a tripwire stretched taut across the path, just inches above the snow. It was a cruel and simple device. Touch the wire, and the shaped charge would unleash a jet of molten metal and blast in the direction Ievlev had pointed it. He settled into his hole, pulled his white camouflage bashlik over his head, and waited, his Mosin-Nagant cold against his cheek. The first German patrol came at dusk. 2 soldiers, moving cautiously down the trail, their Mauser Kar 98K rifles slung. They were talking in low voices, scanning the trees. They did not look down at their boots. The lead soldier's foot caught the nearly invisible wire. The explosion was catastrophic in the confined space. The shaped charge detonated, its horrific blast and penetrating jet shredding the 2 men instantly. The sound echoed through the frozen woods like a thunderclap. In his hole, Ievlev felt the concussion in his bones. Chaos erupted from the German bivouac area just 300 yards away. Shouted orders in German, the sound of boots crunching on snow. They believed they had encountered a partisan ambush, or perhaps a Soviet reconnaissance group. A squad of 8 men was quickly dispatched to investigate the explosion. They advanced in a loose skirmish line, off the path now, weapons ready. Ievlev pressed into the earth, let them come. He waited until their silhouettes were clear against the snow. He took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger. The crack of the Mosin-Nagant was unmistakable. A German soldier cried out and fell. Ievlev worked the bolt, fired again, and again. In the gathering darkness, his aimed, disciplined fire was terrifyingly effective. He hit 3 more men before the squad, confused and unable to pinpoint his well-concealed position, dragged their wounded and fell back in disarray. Mikhail Ievlev had just declared his one-man war. The 110th Security Battalion now had a ghost in their midst. Dawn on January 15th revealed the grim evidence of the night's work. The German commander was furious and bewildered. Who was out there? A bypassed Soviet platoon? A large partisan band? The presence of a booby-trapped anti-tank grenade suggested specialized knowledge. He could not have a hostile force operating inside his perimeter. It was a threat to his command post, his supply lines, his very morale. A full platoon, over 30 men, was assembled for a coordinated sweep and clear operation. They moved methodically, combing the woods around the ambush site. Ievlev, meanwhile, had not stayed still. Under cover of darkness, he had moved. He had abandoned his first position, knowing it would be the focal point of the search. He fell back several hundred yards, deeper into a more dense thicket, bordering a frozen swamp. Here, he dug again. A new foxhole, with a clear view of an open glade. He had no food, only a handful of rifle cartridges left, and his single F1 fragmentation grenade. His greatest weapon now was the terrain itself and the psychology of his enemy. The German platoon spent the morning finding nothing but an empty hole and bloodstains in the snow. The tension among the security troops was palpable. Every shadow in the pines seemed to hold a sniper. Every crack of a frozen branch was a gunshot. By midday, frustrated and cold, the platoon leader decided to break for a quick meal in a relatively clear area. The very glade Ievlev was watching. Pause. From his concealed position, Ievlev watched the Germans cluster together, lowering their guards for a moment. He estimated the range at just over 150 meters. It was a long shot for a standard rifle, but not impossible. He steadied his rifle against a tree root, took aim not at a man, but at the group. He fired. A soldier slumped over his ration tin. Panic. The Germans scrambled for cover, firing wildly into the trees in the general direction of the shot. Ievlev fired twice more, then immediately withdrew, snaking his way through the thick undergrowth toward the frozen swamp. He left behind a trail of confusion and rising fear. For the remainder of the day and into the second night, the 110th Battalion was in a state of high alert. They now believed a significant Soviet force was hiding in the swampy woods. Sentries were doubled. Patrols went out in company strength. The crack of a single rifle shot would send entire sections into a defensive posture, wasting ammunition on phantom targets. Ievlev became a phantom. He never stayed in one place more than a few hours. He moved with agonizing slowness and silence, a shadow in a white landscape. He drank by melting snow in his mouth. Hunger was a constant, gnawing pain. The cold seeped through his greatcoat, threatening hypothermia. Sleep was impossible. The crisis was no longer just the enemy outside. It was the enemy within. Exhaustion, despair, and the creeping doubt that his sacrifice was meaningless. January 16th, the third day. Mikhail Ievlev was reaching his physical limit. His ammunition was nearly gone. His movements were slower, his mind fogged by cold and fatigue. The Germans, however, were descending into a different kind of crisis. Their battalion was being paralyzed by a single, unseen adversary. Reports of casualties, now totaling nearly a dozen dead and wounded from scattered incidents, filtered back to headquarters. The commander faced a dilemma. He was tasked with holding this sector, but a substantial part of his combat strength was being tied down hunting a ghost. Rumors spread among the German ranks of a Russische Gespenst, a Russian specter. Ievlev, in a moment of lucidity, realized his strategy had to change. Harassment was no longer enough. He needed to create a shock so severe it would convince the Germans a major attack was imminent. He needed to force them to retreat. And he had one tool left, his sole F1 grenade, or as the soldiers called it, the limonka, the little lemon. That afternoon, he identified the German battalion's nerve center, a log-built izba, a peasant hut, being used as a command post. Wires ran from it, and couriers came and went frequently. It was heavily guarded, but the guards were focused on the woods, not the building itself. Under the cover of a light snowfall, Ievlev began an audacious, slow-motion crawl. Yard by yard, using every dip in the ground, every bush, every shadow, he closed the distance. He moved not like a soldier, but like a predator. For 2 hours, he inched forward until he was nestled in a drainage ditch just 40 yards from the hut's side wall. He could hear the murmur of German voices inside. This was the ultimate gamble. Throwing the grenade through a window was impossible. The guards would see him. He had to create a diversion. He gathered a handful of small stones. With a gentle underhand toss, he lobbed one to clatter against the trees on the far side of the clearing. A guard head snapped around. He gestured to his comrade. Both turned, peering into the gloom. It was the moment Ievlev needed. He rose to one knee, pulled the pin on his limonka, counted 1, 2, and lobbed it in a high, silent arc. It landed with a soft thud on the packed snow by the foundation of the hut, right beneath a window. He dropped back into the ditch. The explosion was ear-splitting. The F-1, packed with 60 grams of TNT, shattered the window and sent a storm of fragments into the room. Smoke billowed from the opening. Shouts of alarm and pain erupted. The entire German perimeter erupted in fire. Machine guns chattered indiscriminately into the woods. Convinced this was the prelude to a full-scale Soviet assault, the German battalion commander, possibly wounded in the blast, made a fateful decision. He could not hold his position with an enemy force apparently striking at his very headquarters. He gave the order to withdraw. Vehicles were started. Equipment was hastily loaded. Under covering fire, the 110th Security Battalion began to pull back from the Dukora woods, abandoning the position they had held for 3 days. For Mikhail Ievlev, huddled in his ditch, the sound of the German withdrawal was like a dream. The engine roars grew fainter, the gunfire ceased, an impossible silence returned. Cautiously, after what felt like an eternity, he raised his head. The German position was empty, littered with abandoned gear. Through sheer grit, tactical cunning, and psychological warfare, one man had caused the retreat of an enemy battalion. Stumbling from weakness, he made his way back to the last known location of his own unit. On January 17th, a Soviet reconnaissance patrol found him, emaciated, frostbitten, barely conscious, but alive. His story, confirmed by subsequent intelligence and the captured German position, seemed too incredible to be true. But the evidence was there. The 110th Battalion had indeed withdrawn prematurely. The booby trap site, the multiple casualty locations, and the damaged command post all told the tale of a battalion under sustained attack. Only the Red Army knew the attack had come from a single soldier. For his exemplary fulfillment of combat missions and demonstrated courage and heroism, Senior Sergeant Mikhail Borisovich Ievlev was awarded the highest honor the Soviet Union could bestow, the title of Hero of the Soviet Union, along with the Order of Lenin and the Gold Star Medal. Decree of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet, March 24, 1945. His official citation reads, "Being surrounded and cut off from his unit, for 3 days engaged in battle with a large group of the enemy, inflicting significant losses on them in manpower, and with his brave actions facilitated the fulfillment of the combat mission by the battalion." Mikhail Ievlev survived the war. He returned to civilian life, his legendary 3-day stand a quiet part of his past. He passed away in 1990, just before the Soviet Union he defended dissolved. His story stands as one of the most extraordinary episodes of individual survival and impact in the annals of warfare. It is a testament not to the glory of war, but to the profound depths of human resilience, the power of the mind over matter, and the incredible impact a single, determined individual can have against impossible odds. The lone stand of Senior Sergeant Mikhail Ievlev in the Dukora woods was more than a military feat. It was a profound human drama of will against circumstance. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to WW2 Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.